The last time the NOVAR Verizon Cup Series hit the track, Shane Harden took the victory over after holding off charges between Jamie Scott and Brandon Green. The next race that the drivers will head to is the Chicagoland Speedway, which is one of the fan favorite tracks that NOVAR heads to, and also one of the driver favorite tracks to head to. In last year's race, Logan Chin won it after double overtime, the first ever overtime race in NOVAR history, as he held off multiple charges from Brian Wilson, who Brian Wilson is one of the favorites to win this race, and I believe he's starting up in the top 10. So Wilson could actually have a pretty good weekend here. He won the 2011 race and then finished second into the past two. And I believe he finished in the top 15 in the 2010 race as well. So Wilson's had the best record in the here at Chicagoland. But as we progress, the qualifying race was also a 30-lap shootout. Kyra Youthen passed Casey Littinger in the closing laps to win that qualifying race. And now we'll head it over to Kendall Johnson for the race recap. And Jason Duke's going to lead the field down to the green flag. IJ Jr. sits on his outside. Brian Wilson sits third. As looks like Duke gets a slightly better start over IJ Jr. And Duke will get the line going into turn number one, as the pack does spread out just a tad bit. Like, not instantly, but like a little bit. Brian Wilson's going to go onto the inside of IJ Jr. with Jamie Scott, the driver, going into this weekend. Second at points, Scott A's going to go to try to make it 3 wide. IJ Jr. gets a run off the corner. Duke bounces off into the wall, and Jamie Scott and IJ Jr., the two Bulls Racing teammates, are going to sit second and third. Jamie Scott is going to try to get to the inside. Looks like he'll go under the number 66. Duke runs it a little bit wide, and Scott is going to just hang into the inside. And heading into turn number 3, Scotty is going to get a good run. Scotty's going to slide up the track and almost loses control of the car. So some great driving early in this going, but that was going to give Duke the early lead, as we actually have our first caution flag. Shane Howard, car number 03, does pretty much the same thing as Scotty did, and it runs up and gets 73 of Shane Truex. Truex, I believe, was going into this weekend was, I believe, sitting in the top 15 in points, and that's not going to help him early on in the going. Duke led on the restart with Scotty in second, Blake Taylor in third, and James Jr. sits in fourth, and then IJ Jr. sits fifth. So the Bulls Racing, 2 of the Bulls Racing cars, and both of the Grinson Racing cars, which all 4 are Toyotas, all of them are sitting in the top 5. Duke is the only one that's not in a Toyota, as he's driving a Ford. So it looks like it is still single file, as Scotty's going to try again. On the first time he tried, he almost spun the car out. Looks like Scotty will get to the race lead, as that will be the first lead change of the night. Blake Battagliana is going to get to second spot. James Wilson Jr. is going to follow behind. As it looks like Battagliana is going to try to get under the 9 of Scotty, as looks like he couldn't get the good enough run, but looks like we'll see if he can do it going to the inside. Scotty runs it a little bit high. Battagliana runs it towards the middle, and then Wilson goes low. Scotty is going to get into the wall, and Battagliana is not able to get anything, and actually it helps Wilson. Wilson gets under the number 50, and Wilson will get him by. Caution 2, lap number 11. Shane Harden, last week's winner, just accelerates up and gets into Casey Lester. Lester goes upside down, and looks like Keith Hales was also collected. So 2 of the top 3 were collected in points. Looks like the 12 of Lester went upside down, and I think Harden just drove right into him. Let's take a look at another angle. Lester comes up the track, it's hit, nowhere to go for Corey Von Zelga. Keith Hales gets a piece of it, and then Casey Littinger, the 2012 winner, is in there. Lester goes on his roof, but he's able to continue on. So car 59, as a result of Shane Harden to the holler after the race. Jason Duke would get the lead back with Tony Wider sitting in the second spot. Shane Nargan third, Alan Kimmel fourth, and Blake Battagliana fifth. Pretty good seasons for the 35, 32, and 88. Actually, Kimmel's actually been having a terrible season. He failed to qualify for Dennisville. I believe he also failed to qualify for Atlantic City, which I believe, if that's the case, this would be his first of the year, and he's actually taking advantage of it as they go 3 wide. Nargan's going to run up the track and almost get into Jason Duke. Duke will bounce off the wall, and this will give Nargan the advantage. Alan Kimmel looks like he will get by the 66 and get to second spot. So, as I mentioned, Kimmel was having a bad season, and he's been quite stellar on these half-mile tracks. He won at Kentucky in 2012, but hasn't been really doing anything else. Caution 3, lap 19, Jamie Scott Well, Brian Kittleson decides to go to the pit road, and he just does that. Todd Piper and Keith Hales are involved in a separate incident, and Shane Truex was collected. The 53 would also be called to the hog. But here's the second incident. They were trying to avoid the wreck, and it looks like the 27 comes down on the 26 of Piper. Piper spins, and then Hales gets in the dirt and merges up safely. Didn't seem to be any damage to the 27. We would have pit stops that would cycle out. Chadler Blake at the 15 would be the race leader, with Justin Klingston in second. Luke Warren, I believe, would be in, and was actually in third. And then Shane Howard comes back after that early incident to be in fourth. And then the 25 of Scott Howard is in fifth. So three of the Chin Racing cars are actually right there. As it looks like Klingston's going to go to the inside. Klingston has had a stellar rookie season, garnishing the equipment that David Payton used to drive. There you see Blake into the wall. As looks like Klingston's going to go to the inside. Luke Warren is also going to try to give it a shot, trying to go for the lead. As Blake looks like the 24 of Klingston runs it wide. It's going to be 3 wide off of turn number 2. However, Warren is not able to get a good enough run to maintain that bottom line. And looks like Klingston is going to hold the bottom. He runs the turn wide. Blake gets a good run. As looks like Klingston's going to get the lead, and we have a crash behind. It looks like Klingston's going to beat Blake back to the caution, but here's what happened. Looks like Howard Ruthin runs up the track, gets into Kano Suzuki and Shane Howard. Suzuki and Howard just battle for position, and then they all wreck. Scott Howard's car 25 is in there. And then a big pileup would start up. Looks like Jared Lanzo was collected. I think we saw one car upside down. I think that was Evan Brooks that went upside down. Jonathan Winslow was collected. Chris Bell was collected. And let's take a look from Casey Linter's perspective. Linter was also collected as well. I think he drives through, finds a gap, runs into the 57, and then just gets hit from behind by the 73. Corey Von Delgo is also upside down. Brandon Green is also involved. Though some of your early title contenders were also involved. Let's take a look from Scott Howard's on board. Gets clipped from the 03 and just slides. And then Zuck Key goes over, and then the wrecking all ensues. Brian Wilson almost wipes out the 25, and then here's from Kyra Uther's perspective. Gets clipped by the 71, and then the 57 would spin, get into Shane Harden, and then more cars would pile in. And then I think that was Brian Kittleson and Shane Truex. They all just drove right in and just roll them. The 57 and the 95 would go over. 23, I believe, is the only car that would not be able to fire up instantly because that 23 was actually upside down. So about 15 cars were collected in this lap 25 wreck. On the restart, which happened on lap number 29, saw Justin Klingston back into the race lead. Chandler Blake sits in the second spot. Luke Warren. It looks like the 24 and 15 were able to get away from the pack easily, as Blake and Klingston. Luke Warren also got away from that pack, but he is a little bit ways from the two main leaders. As Klingston, he's going to run it toward the middle, and Blake's going to get a better run. And Blake's going to go to the inside and was not able to get a good enough run to hold that line, as Warren is just settling in there in third. And I believe most of the pack's already went slow down due to lap traffic, but the racing has kind of spread out. Blake to the race lead on the inside of that number 24. So Blake, car number 15, will get to the inside. It looks like Blake will get the lead, unless if Klingston gets a good enough run. I don't think he will. He actually will bounce off the wall there. And it looks like Blake will get back to the race lead. So coming into turn number 1, I don't think. Well, Blake and Klingston didn't really do well at Atlantic City. I think both were involved in wrecks, but this is a good turnaround between these two. Next caution would fly on lap 37. Teammates Stephen Volkins and Keith Hales would get collected. Todd Piper, would spin. Keith Hales comes out and gets turned over by the 59. So your points leader going into this weekend is involved in another wreck, and this time being turned upside down. And he was actually hit hard. And there you see the 27 comes back up and gets into Shane Harden in the 59. And then the 73 of Shane Truex also gets a piece of that as well. So now sliding down the track, I believe the 27 is done for the day and gets hit again by the 29. So it looks like the day is done for car number 27 of Keith Hales. Jay Honori Blake's teammate would be on the leader of the restart. Jason Duke will get back to second. Casey Huto, car number 19, is in third. As I believe lap traffic is just blocking off everybody. As a result, the 01 and 66 are getting away. So, looks like Honor Noyes, I think she failed to qualify for Atlantic City, but was involved in a decent sized wreck at Dennisville. But there you see Duke running down the 66. Duke running down the 01, excuse me. We've been having another caution lap happen on lap 49. Teammates just wreck each other. Teammates and brothers just wreck each other. I'm not sure how the dinner table is going to be for them later tonight, as that just happened. Chandler Blake will lead on the restart. Justin Cleakston back in second. Cody White in car 22 is in third. And then Carson Brooks in car 75, the driver who almost won this race in 2009, however lost a cylinder late, is in fourth. There's Blake and Cleakston, they are still here. White and Brooks are also right there, but basically for the first half of this race, the race has basically been dominated by these two drivers. Cleakston gets a good run in the middle of the corner and looks like he will get by the number 15 of Chandler Blake, as Blake's actually slowed down a little bit, as these two would be battling it out for the. However, this would be a game changer. This would be a race-changing move right here. Blake will get to the lead of this race. However, Cleakston would have to deal with not only with Blake, but with Carson Brooks, Cody White, and the lap car of Shane Clark III. As Cleakston is going to get to the bottom, he runs it way high and it bounces off the wall. Normally, you would think this would not be an issue. However, this would be a race change, and I said that was a race-changing move because pretty much for the rest of this race, the 24 would fall back and lose the handlings because of the contact with the wall, and that would pretty much change the complexity of the race. Blake would only fall back to about 15th spot. Next caution, Alan Kimmel gets into the 20 of Mark Mongillo. Mark Mongillo slides and gets into Casey Lettinger. So the 5 spins hard gets into the 20 and the 5. The 5 was smoking, but somehow was able to get back going. Then we had another incident. Casey Lester gets turned by Brian Wilson, gets Jared Lancel. Brian Kittleson was also there, and then Shane Truex in the 73, having just a bad day, just runs right into the 13 of Lancel, as I think all the cars involved would continue on. The 32 of Shane Nargan would get to the race lead, with Cody White sitting in second. The 15 of Chandler Blake third, Jay Honoré fourth, as Nargan would have a little bit of difficulty getting around the 98, but he would eventually get away. Cody White struggling to get by the 98, as Chandler Blake will actually take advantage of that, as Cody White is actually still on the outside, but we'll see if Blake gets the outside. Looks like White, I believe, no, Clark will get the run on the middle line, and Chandler Blake will get advantage as the 22 will bounce off that wall, as cars have been getting really good runs off that corner and then just been running into the wall. Another caution left, 82. Blake Battagliani turns Jonathan Winslow. Winslow sides back up the track and it gets into Brian Wilson. And Scott Howard and Jason Duke have also been collecting. So Brian Wilson, who's finished in the top 3 the past 3 races, was also collected, and I don't see that car starting up again. One of the 4 boneheaded moves of this race. Shane Nargan tries to go under all the lap cars, gets into Kanozuki, and 3 of the 4 leaders are collected. The only one that was not collected was the 15 of Chandler Blake, who got into the race lead. So Damon Scott, James Lewis, and Jake Curlin would be the next 3 cars as a result of that. As the 15 Blake would get away from the 18, as Damon Scott, I believe, has failed to qualify for the first 2 races of the season, and he has been the only low side of Silver Green's run. However, Silver Green would have more bad days, as Cody White would get into Casey Lettinger, and that would go, and White's day would go from bad to worse, as nobody else would hit the 22. Chandler Blake will be back for the lead on this restart. Damon Scott, number 18, is in second spot, as looks like Shane Cook III just jumps up to the outside and holds up the 18. However, Scott's able to go back under the 18, the 98, as looks like Chandler Blake has a decent sized lead, and the 18 of Damon Scott has also pulled away. However, one driver that could be a contender for Chandler Blake after the remaining contenders all crashed out or had issues was that 76 car, Jake Curlin. Curlin's been kind of a quiet driver pretty much just most of his entire career. Looks like he gets under these 18 of Damon Scott. That's for third, and then he gets a good enough car to run down the 42 and is able to get to the inside. And for some reason, and then he had a really good run, I believe, in turn 3 and 4, and that would propel him and get a really good momentum. And then he would get to the inside. Shane Bliss runs the track turn wide, and Chadwick Blake also runs the turn wide, and Jake Killen will get the run and will be able to cut the lead by Blake down a little bit. It looks like Killen's still getting that run is, I believe, still there. As we'll have to see, Killen runs it a little bit lower than Blake. Both of them ran the middle line. And now turn 3, looks like Killen's gonna stick it to the middle. Blake's gonna run it way high. That's gonna give Killen a good enough run. Blake bounces off the wall. It looks like Killen's gonna get the run. And looks like Jake Killen will take the lead. And then our final caution of the day would happen on lap 105. Casey Lester and Luke Warren make contact, and they spin each other around. And Luke Warren was hit by, I believe, the 22 of Cody White, and then almost gets hit by the 29 of Stephen Volt. Chadwick Blake was able to retake the lead back from Jake Killen on this restart, which happened on lap 109, as he was led by Damon Scott in car number 18, and then Walter Green, car number 39. As just like what happened to Cody White earlier in this race, in Damon Scott, he has had struggles with the 76 of Killen. Has been struggling, but actually gets away a lot quicker than what Damon Scott and Cody White did. Killen runs it a little bit high. Blake runs it higher, but then the battle would be on. With just 8 laps remaining, Jake Killen would be able to close down the 15 and then try to run down the 15. Looks like he gets to the Killen gets to the inside of the 15. Blake has been the dominant car of the second half of this race and basically been the dominant car the entire race. So Blake runs it high, Killen runs it way low, and will be able to hold it down to the middle. And looks like the 76 of Killen will take the lead. And then Chadwick Blake in the 15, will he be able to retake the lead, or will Killen be able to run away with it? As they're coming out of the turn number 2, down the backstretch, car 15 at Chadwick Blake. This will also be a critical point of the race. Killen runs turn 3 way high. Blake goes way low, and the 76 will be able to bounce off the wall. And for the bad news of that, this would affect the handling of the 76, as that car would be terrible off of turn 3 and 4 for pretty much the remainder of the race. However, Chadwick Blake was having a good car, as this was, I think, a couple laps later. Blake would be able to build up a huge lead over the 76 Killen. And here they come. They're going to take the white flag this time. Blake has about nearly a 0.8 of a second lead over the 76, and unless something crazy happens to that 15, like an engine expiring, I'm pretty sure this 15 is going to be the winner of this race. But we don't know yet. But Chicago's had its surprises. Looks like Blake runs the corner wide, and out of 4, Blake's going to bounce off the wall. But even with that in mind, he is going to still be able to win here at Chicago, his second win at the facility. So Chadwick Blake is the winner of this race. He led 59 laps en route to his victory. Jake Killen would have actually been a contender, however, his handling went away during the closest stages of this race. And the half a second margin of victory, which is actually 0.56, it's, I believe, in the last, since 2007, it is the largest margin of victory. So that's how competitive these Chicagoland races have been over the past years. Damon Scott finishes third, nearly a 2-second gap difference between Blake and Scott. Walter Green then finishes about 3-second difference between the leader. Tony Wider, I believe this is his second top 10 finish of the year. Todd Piper, I believe, same likewise. James Wilson Jr. gets 7th spots and finishes 6 seconds behind. Casey Huto, car number 19, I believe will take over the points lead, and actually does if you see it from the standings on our right. And then Brandon Green, car number 30, another top 10 finish for car number 30. And then Shane Howard rallies back after a mid-race crash to finish 10th. So as a result of the race, after 3 events, Casey Huto is your points leader. He leads by 6 over a tie between Jake Killen and Chadwick Blake. Although, according to the way it is right now, Killen is ahead of Blake, but in tiebreakers, Chadwick Blake is credited actually in 2nd spot, although the statistics board and the computers rank him 3rd, which I have no clue why. So Casey Hutto, but back to Casey Hutto. Hutto is, I believe, making a huge statement for the Bulls Racing organization. This was a do or die year for Hutto, and Hutto is making a big statement outrunning Gordon Billard, who I believe Billard has yet to make a race, which that is a huge shocker to the press going into the Edmonton weekend. As I mentioned, Kierland and Blake were tied for 2nd. Mark Mongillo falls from actually gains a couple of spots. He's actually in 4th now, 7 points back. Jamie Scott falls from the points lead. He falls to 5th. Brandon Green goes to 6th. 7th is Cody White. Justin Klinkson, despite having a good race, however, he pretty much, the car went downhill in the second half of the race. Tony Whiter is in 9th, and then Casey Lester rounds out the top 10. In 11th, I actually made a mistake. Keith Hales was the points leader after Atlantic City. Luke Warren sits in 12th spot. He sits 19 points back from the leader. And then follow just 1 point in front of him is Todd Piper sitting in 13th. Carson Brooks sits 14th. And then rounding out the top 15 is car number 73 of Shane Truex. Next week's race is going to be at the Edmonton Endurance Course.